And now we need to get the pictures up again. But I'd like to address Per-Espen Stokenes. We talked about the urgency, the sense of urgency. But in order for us to understand that we need to move, we need to act, we need stories, we need visions. How can we address this, the lack of visions? Tell us more about this.
Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for hanging in there all the way. And well, Katrina, as you said, the crisis is real and the alarm is much needed. And it's not that, climate scientists are simply alarmists, as some say. No, it is that scientific facts as such are truly alarming. And most people in this audience, and probably those on YouTube right now, are among those that have heard the alarm. So I assume we're speaking here mostly with people within the alarmed segment, as some surveys call them. And if you weren't, I guess you would be alarmed now after listening to Scott Stewart. In the US, this segment is about 15% of the population. In the EU, it's somewhere between 20 and 30%. Then we have a tiny slice of dismissives, which are about 10%. They like to make fun of this stuff, and they're very eager on social media, etc. But the rest, the largest segment, is either not very or fairly just a little bit concerned. So what I try to focus on is not just you wonderful people in the audience and YouTube, but on the larger group, the majority, the 50 to 60% middle. How do we get them to hear the alarm? And those are the ones we need to reach. And in a way, they hear the alarm, but somehow it doesn't hit home. And why doesn't it? And here psychology could come in to give some indications. And in some of my work, I published on the psychological barriers that are in the brain that stop people from listening to the alarm and taking action. Now, I'll focus my last few minutes here on what we can do differently, and focusing on the two issues that you mentioned. First, role models, and second, the story. How do we change the way we speak about climate change? So we need a cultural shift as well, because culture is what we assume other people will do in the same situation. We get socialized into a culture, we learn the social norms, and a norm is what I believe other people would do in the same situation. So if it is normal to hear the alarm, then I will too. And there's pretty strong evidence from social psychology that if I believe my neighbor or my peers, my friends are doing something, or some people I respect, then that gives me motivation as well. More than hearing about the sustainability of this issue, more than hearing about how important it is for my children and grandchildren, more than how much money I'm going to save if I cut down on my power consumption or drive less cars. But if I get compared to my neighbors, then suddenly I really start caring. And we're seeing lots of evidence now that solar panels, for instance, rooftop panels, are contagious, meaning that it's like a virus. So if I see my neighbors got one, then I want one too.
The power of peer pressure.
Oslo is one city where we have pretty lot of electric vehicles coming in. And we just did a study that was completed this summer. And we can see on a map how if there are some EVs, electric vehicles, in that street, the likelihood of getting more in that street actually goes way up relative to one where there is none. So that's the silent climate communication that goes into changing our norms, changing culture through a million actions. And I hope this social psychology evidence can give you some motivation that when we do these things, if I go biking, I just have my helmet with me, people notice. And then we change the culture gradually, one act by a time. Second, we need a new story and a new narrative about where we want to go. So those who can hear the alarm, they have already heard that story, but still they're reluctant. So what we need is better storytellers, more storytellers to tell about where we want to go. What's the alternative? Is there a credible way we can go? And one story I'd really like is that addresses the majority of the people is what we call the genuine green growth story. How can we have houses, buildings that are net positive? How can we have food chains that are regenerative for the soils? How can we electrify all transport so that it gets to zero emissions? And I also love the story from Canada we just heard now about the carbon fee and dividend, because that enhances all these three.